Are you tired of the noise and the spin? Do you want the real story behind the headlines? I'm Jake, and this is Politics by Jake, where I tell you what they won't. And now we're going even deeper, and I need your help to keep doing it. Join me on Patreon and support independent political analysis that doesn't pull punches. You'll get insider breakdowns, you'll get bonus clips, and first access to new content. So go to patreon.com/politics by Jake. That's patreon.com/politics by Jake. No filters, no fluff, just the truth. Let's do this together. And hi, everybody. It's July 4th. It is Independence Day, 7 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, it's just whatever time it is. This is Jake. This is Politics by Jake. And I am here. I'm your political host. I'm your political commentarist. I'm a legal commentarist. And I'm a student of history because I believe history is really important. This is an important time and it's important days for several reasons. And so rather than do the usual spiel, which I suppose I could do, I just want to get into it. This is like, I don't know, the 172nd anniversary, something like that, of the Battle of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg, I don't want to tell you more than you ever wanted to know about this, because there's some people who will say Gettysburg was what the phrase they use is the high water mark of the Confederacy. And others will say, no, it wasn't Gettysburg, it was Vicksburg. And so because they both happened at about the same time. And so because of that, and because this is so crucial, because you hear me talk about, and it's just really crucial. You'll hear me talk about a couple of things. You'll hear me say, number one, I think there are 4 United States. They're all built one on top of the other, just like the ruins at Troy. Von Schliemann went to that area and found not only one Troy, because everybody thought that Troy was a myth. They didn't think that it actually existed. So an archaeologist, a German archaeologist named von Schliemann, went there, and he found not only one Troy, he found something like 20 of them. And they were all built, one on top of the other. And that's the way this is. These United States, we have the first one, and people will say there have only been 2. I say there have been 4, and that's okay. I don't mind for the people who say that there have only been 2. We can talk about that. Let me tell you why I think that there are 4, and let me enunciate and tell you what I think those 4 are. Number one, you have the Articles of Confederation, United States. That was the first one. Number 2, you have the what we call even today the Constitutional United States. That's number 2. Number 3, you have the New Birth of Freedom. That is basically embodied in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. 13th is no chattel slavery. 14th is just a whole bunch of things that we talk about. And the 15th is with regard to voting rights. And that, to me, is the 3rd United States, and that is the new birth of freedom. And it's just very momentous. And on a day like Independence Day, we should really, for all the other things that we do, all the other ways that we enjoy the blessings of freedom that this country has given us, we really need to remember these fundamental things. And we need to understand these things because these are crucial, because we're in a fight right now. We're in a fight for the life of the country and the direction that it's going, which is entirely similar in momentous nature to the Civil War. It's very serious, and I'm going to talk about some things with regard to Hitler and Putin in order to make some points about the current administration, and it's just very serious. So Then you have what I call the Fourth United States, and that was in 1933, and that's the New Deal United States and that's the United States that defeated Germany, defeated Japan, defeated the Soviet Union in the Cold War, put a man on the moon, has given the country and the world, arguably, the greatest economy that has ever been in the existence of at least in recorded history anyway, of the entire world. And that has to do with the New Deal. It has to do with the Second Bill of Rights, which is essentially an economic declaration that is based on the premise, and it's also in the North Atlantic Charter, and is important for this very same reason, which is that a necessitous man, and this is a principle, a necessitous man is not a free man. So in other words, you can say you're free, but if you don't have, for example, decent housing, decent food, decent clothing, decent medical care, decent education, a decent job with a pension, so on and so forth, you're not free. This is extremely important evolution in the history of the United States. And so I think, I call that the Fourth United States. So that's 1933. And truly, the Economic Bill of Rights, which is the Second Bill of Rights, was introduced in 1944. Roosevelt was not able to advance it, of course, because he died soon thereafter. And so that's what that is. So that's, without embellishing it and elaborating on it, that's my argument on that. So, all right, let's talk about the Battle of Gettysburg. The dates on that are July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. Location is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Union commander is Major General George G. Meade. And this is just really interesting. He took command just days before the battle. Confederate commander Robert E. Lee, probably heard of him. The result was a Union victory. The casualties were about 23,000. And that's representative of 3,150 killed, 14,500 wounded, 5,300 missing or captured. With the Confederates, they lost more, but you would think that because of Pickett's charge, which was just an incredibly misguided thing, that where they had to cover like 1,500 yards of ground, it was just stunning, through an open field, under fire all the way. You would have think that they would have lost more, and they did. Pickett lost half of his division. I think he had, I want to say 60% casualties, which is over 10% casualties would be bad leadership, and would be, the leader who lost more than 10% of his men. That would not be good. But I think about 60% of his division were killed. For the Union is 23,000, but for the Confederates, only 5,000 more, 28,000, approximately 3,900 killed, 18,700 wounded, 5,400 missing or captured, and the total was around 51,000 combined casualties. It is the bloodiest battle of the war. And for the Vicksburg campaign occurred today, back in 1863. Literally the day after Gettysburg ended. And the Union commander there was Major General Ulysses S. Grant. The Confederate commander was General John C. Pemberton. The result was a Union victory and Vicksburg surrenders. And the significance is that it split the Confederacy in two. It gave the Union the control of the entire Mississippi River. It severely hampered Confederate logistics and morale. It was a major strategic victory, and as you heard me say at the beginning, perhaps more decisive even than Gettysburg. And the question is which was the turning point, Gettysburg and Vicksburg. There's an argument that can be made there. At Gettysburg, tactically, Lee's northern invasion was repelled. Vicksburg, tactically, captured an entire Confederate stronghold. Strategically, it's definitely a morale boost for the North, no doubt about it. Vicksburg, strategically, it severed the Confederacy, it cut them in two and gave the Union Navy full control of the Mississippi River. Symbolic, Gettysburg is said to be the high watermark of the Confederacy, and Vicksburg, as you've heard me say, this is all arguably the actual irreversible pivot after which the Confederacy was never going to be able to recover. In the aftermath, as Lee retreats to Virginia, he never invades again, and Grant rises in prominence, set the stage for 1864. And so let me just say a little bit more about this. Probably the unsung hero of Gettysburg First Day is a man that, when I say his name, you'll probably say, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Let me explain it. John Buford. His cavalry division arrived on June 30th and scouted the area, and they just happened to be there at about the same time Lee's army was coming. They knew that Lee's army was coming, and they correctly predicted that Gettysburg would be critical ground for the coming battle. And on the morning of July 1st, 1863, Buford famously held off superior Confederate forces with just 2 brigades of cavalry, and he used dismounted skirmish tactics to delay until Reynolds could arrive with infantry. And that delay quite literally bought the Union Army the high ground. Cemetery Hill, Culp Hill, Cemetery Ridge. The rest of this shaped the battle. I have argued that as soon as the Union took the high ground, Lee should have left, and he didn't. And that just means everything. So, and here's the important thing of this. On morning of July 1st, Buford positions his cavalry dismounted in a skirmish line west of Gettysburg along ridges near a place called Willoughby Run. He uses Spencer repeating carbines, that was really advanced weaponry at the time. Some of the Confederate troops were just using muskets. And this is Politics by Jake. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. And this is Politics by Jake, and we're back. To slow advancing Confederate forces under General Henry Heth. His cavalry fights a delaying action from around 7:30 a.m. until Union reinforcements arrive at around 10:30 a.m. And at that point in time, Major General John Reynolds arrives with I Corps responding to Buford's call for support. Reynolds praises Buford's foresight, but dies shortly after arriving, and he's shot while deploying troops. The Union infantry continues to hold the ridges west and north of town. In the afternoon, the Confederate forces under Ewell and Hill arrive and press the Union very hard, and the Union forces are eventually forced to retreat through Gettysburg, and they actually suffer heavy losses. But despite this, the Union falls back to Buford's chosen high ground, where Meade will later consolidate the army. And this is why Buford matters. Buford's decision, first of all, to correctly scout the ground, and his decision to stand and fight, despite being outnumbered. He was outnumbered. He had like 2 brigades of cavalry or something like that. Shaped the entire 3-day battle. Without Buford's delaying tactics, the Confederates likely would have occupied the high ground, and this would have drastically altered the battle's course. As I said, once Lee saw that the Union couldn't be dislodged from the high ground, it was over. He could have arguably saved more of his army to fight another day, could have saved logistics, could have saved ordnance, could have saved munitions, could have saved other supplies, and just withdrawn. But he didn't do that. And even General Meade later acknowledged Buford's role in saving the field. So, okay, this is something we should all remember. And at this point, let's take a break. And we will be back, of course, after a commercial from the good folks at Twain Consulting. And this is Politics by Jake. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. If you think owning things in your own name keeps you in control, think again. In today's world, lawsuits, taxes, and predators are everywhere. That's why the smart money hides in plain sight. We help you to build legal firewalls, LLCs, land trusts, private contracts that protect your assets while keeping you invisible. Call Twain Consulting today at 310-997-2204. Find us on Facebook at Twain Consulting. That's facebook.com/Twain Consulting. Protect what you've built before someone else takes it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Hi, this is Jake with Politics by Jake. Do you like what you hear right now? Support the real talk then. Go to patreon.com/Politics by Jake right now. Every dollar helps fight the noise. Okay, and this is Politics by Jake, and we are back. Thank you, Twain Consulting. Thank you, Patreon, for those good commercial messages. Good stuff from Twain Consulting. You should check them out, if I do say so myself. So, unfortunately, the big, beautiful bill passed, and I say that not even tongue-in-cheek, but as a pejorative, because we all know what this does. This cuts $880 billion over 10 years from the social safety net. It acts against the poorest and most defenseless in our country to deprive them of food and of health care and of other things too. One of the things that it deprives them of now, it's called LIHEAP. And LIHEAP, it's an acronym. It's for it's for anywhere, but especially for the parts of the country where it gets cold. And it gets colder than normal. And people need to have heat. And as a consequence of this, now they're not necessarily going to be able to pay for their heat. And this is the kind of a thing, this is why the social safety net is so important. People literally, some people live and they have to decide whether they're going to eat or whether they're going to pay for their medicine. Because medicine can be life. It can be literally the difference between life and death. And some people are living in such a state and in such a condition that this matters. And it's the same way with heat. Imagine sitting in a house all bundled up and it's still not working because it's freezing in the winter, and you have to make a decision now because LIHEAP has either been completely removed or has been severely compromised. Now you have a situation where you have to decide whether you're going to eat or whether you're going to have heat. This is awful. The least among us are being brutally savaged by this bill. So in other words, on Thursday morning, this is yesterday, the House narrowly passed a sweeping bill to extend tax cuts and slash social safety net programs. I know you've heard about this. I'm just going to tell you anyway. Capping a Republicans' chaotic month-long slog to overcome deep rifts within their party and deliver President Trump's domestic agenda. The final vote was 218 to 214. It was along party lines. Speaker Johnson spent a frenzied day and night toiling to quell resistance in his ranks that threatened until the very end to derail the president's marquee legislation. And it's this, you can get this stuff from other things. This is what I want to talk about here, is that Trump, and we're going to be talking about this because this is totally corrupt. This is just the worst. Trump is running a confidence game. He's a grifter. He's a con man. He's a felon. He has promulgated and prosecuted insurrection against the United States of America. And now he has crafted legislation that is designed to, as I said, take from the poorest among us. Gavin Newsom of California called it an ultimate betrayal. It is. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota singled out the state's GOP representatives, said the United States will never fully reverse the damage caused by their votes. And I agree. I totally agree. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts blamed President Trump and Republicans for selling out working class people. There's no other way to describe this. It's a gut punch, she said. She said, we will not stop fighting back. We got to have a show where we talk, or a segment, maybe I'll get that today, I don't think so, where we talk about the kind of Democrat that basically is in office and what has to be done in order to rectify this. Because this is really the worst. This is monumentally bad. And like I said, it is taking from the poorest and most defenseless constituents of the United States of America, and it's just an obscenity. It's an abomination. There's no other way to describe it. And this leads into the rest of this, which is that Trump is running a protection racket. His governance style is a protection racket. I mean, the idea is that Trump's presidency operates like a protection racket, where loyalty is bought and paid for, and dissent is punishment. Trump leverages his office to benefit himself, his allies, and to intimidate opponents. And we've talked about this, and I've talked about ideology a lot, but this is more about cash than ideology, and you know where this is going. It's a business run through government power. The original Giovanni Gentile, you hear me mention this periodically on the show, Giovanni Gentile, definition 1922 of fascism is control of the means of production by business or private interest. And I think it was 1924 or 1926, Mussolini made this famous declaration. He said, if fascism is not corporatist, it is nothing. And so you see, and there are other definitions of fascism, but this is the prototypical definition of fascism, and you're seeing it. It's the privatization of everything. And when you analyze the Trump presidency, you see this. It's a business run through government power where personal enrichment trumps, you'll excuse the expression, public service. Take Stephen Miller, for example. And there are many examples of this that I'm going to be able to talk about, but I'm just going to give you a few of them now. A senior advisor, his hardline immigration policies made headlines, but Miller, interestingly, also holds between 100,000 and 250,000 in Palantir Technologies. And Palantir Technologies is a key contractor for ICE. The ICE Gestapo, Palantir secured a $30 million contract to develop Immigration OS, a surveillance tool to enforce deportations, directly benefiting from the policies that Miller championed. This is a textbook example of financial interests driving political decisions. It's classic corruption. We see, this is nothing new. Well, Stephen Miller is nothing new either, but across the administration, we see, for example, government power wielded as a profit machine. Jared Kushner leveraged everybody, well, I don't know if you know this, but a son-in-law of the president, married to Ivanka, leveraged his White House role to bolster, in the first Trump administration, to bolster his personal real estate interests, to Trump's own businesses, benefiting from policy decisions, increased visibility, and the lines between public office and private gain have been blurred. And, you know, at this point in time, let me talk about Senator Murkowski from Alaska. Now, Alaska doesn't have a big population. It's one of those states like North and South Dakota and Montana and places like that don't have big population. Not many people live there. They still get 2 senators, just like the state of California, which has tens and tens and tens of millions of people in it. They still get the same power. And what Murkowski was doing back in January, she was speaking ominously how afraid she was and how it was, she didn't know, she understood why her constituents were afraid. She tried to make a private deal with Trump to have Alaska's residents removed from the SNAP deductions and configurations that would limit the amount of money that she could get so that she could bring home the bacon. And, pork barrel politics is not an unheard of thing. I'm not telling you about something that's new. This has been happening. But the thing is that she didn't get it. She got slapped down by him. And so you can't run a government this way. You can't have this kind of thing going on. So the ideological battles, the culture wars, the nationalist rhetoric serves as elaborate smokescreens. So you think you're talking about one thing, but the people who are actually in power are talking about another. It confuses the public. It focuses attention away from the financial machinations that are going on. And many supporters who you would have to call the illiterati in this context, the people who are not illuminated and who do not know what's going on inside the Beltway, are mobilized behind a political narrative that conceals the real game. And the real game is money and power. So getting back to Murkowski, those statements by Murkowski could have been self-serving in order to mobilize her base and the people of Alaska behind her when she, in fact, was operating in a sub-rosa fashion in order to enrich herself and admittedly also the people of the state of Alaska at the expense of everyone else in the country. She wants to get reelected. All these people want to get reelected. We know that. But they're mobilizing the people behind a political narrative that conceals this real game, as I said, money and power. The patterns of nepotism that have come to the fore, insider deals and favoritism, all these things dominate. Administration officials who invest in companies that receive government. And what this does, this transactional style, which is inappropriate. It's entirely inappropriate to government. That had been happening back in the days of the Bush administration when Halliburton was able to be made the sole contractor with regard to everything in the Iraq war. This is just more of the same, and it shows that this has become business as usual, and these illegal and immoral actions have become, number one, business as usual, and number two, a certain kind of individual who wants to engage in these kinds of activities. It has now been made okay because Trump has turned the government into a cash machine, and we've talked about the fact that Trump is just trying to do a couple of things. Number one, he wants to use the presidency as a way to make as much money as he can. And number two, he wants power. And number three, he wants to stay out of prison. Because if he ever loses the reins of power, he is going to prison. He is a felon 34 times over. As I said, he prosecuted insurrection against the United States of America. If you don't believe me, read Griswold v. Anderson. It lays it out perfectly. Georgia is aching to get their hands on him, to indict him for interference in the election of 2020 after the fact. And I mentioned, about a week ago, that this is really a situation where you have people who are seeing that government can be run this way and that they can enrich themselves in this way, and they are flocking to government. And you heard me say that the ones coming after Trump are going to even be worse than Trump is. And I mean, this kind of a transactional style, it just undermines effective policy making when decisions hinge on who pays or who profits rather than the public good, the public weal. Democratic institutions inevitably erode accountability. It becomes secondary to maintaining cash flow and loyalty. This is bad. This is really bad. The base is exploited. They're used as political capital. As I said, they're energized. They are rallied. But often they are unaware that they are pawns in a scheme designed to enrich the elite. The ideology they champion, it's often a facade, and it's masking the cash grab reality that goes on inside the Beltway. So, in other words, to understand the Trump presidency, we must look beyond the rhetoric. Financial motives now permeate every level, from top advisors like Stephen Miller to the president himself. This cash grab presidency has reshaped, perhaps irretrievably and irrevocably. I said this before in the first administration, that Trump has deformed the office of the presidency, and we may never be able to get it back. And this cash grab presidency, as I said, has reshaped American governance in ways that challenge democratic accountability and public trust. And I wonder if, in fact, we'll ever be able to get it back. I really do. Going on with this, I talked about Stephen A. Miller. You have Pam Bondi, who I like to call Pam Blondie, who's the Attorney General of the United States, was the Attorney General for the state of Florida. She's involved with Trump Media and Technology. They're cabinet officials. She earned at least $3 million from the merger that formed Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social. Bondi was listed as a consultant for the merger and owned additional shares in the company. This financial windfall raises questions about the separation between her public duties and her private investments. Ivanka Trump and fashion brand Ivanka Trump, also serving as advisor, owned and operated the Ivanka Trump fashion brand during her time in the White House. Her brand benefited from increased visibility, access to foreign markets, raising concerns about the use of public office for personal business advantage. Tom Barrack, an investment firm. Tom Barrack, chairman of the inaugural committee, founded Colony Capital. It's an investment firm. Barrack was charged with acting as an unregistered foreign agent, using his access to Trump to benefit his business interests. This case highlights the potential for misuse of public office for private gain. On Lisa Murkowski, as I said, she tried to bargain with Trump for political favors in exchange for a vote on the big budget bill. She sought a carve-out to exempt Alaska from stricter SNAP work requirements, plus health provisions, tax benefits for Alaska's fishermen. The Senate parliamentarian ruled this carve-out illegal under the Byrd rule, meaning her bribe failed, and she got nothing in the end. And she sold out the broader American public, 330 million people, to benefit 740,000 Alaskans. And then she screwed up and got nothing for it. She's ineffective, and this is the kind of Democrat that we have, that we need to get rid of and primary out of existence in 2026 and 2028. She's ineffective. She's obviously ethically compromised, not that the other ones are. Time would fail me on this show and probably several other shows hereafter in order to talk about all the ineffective and ethically compromised people in Congress, as she's caught between Trump's power and her own interests, and she's ultimately failing to secure her deal. We have Kirsten Gillibrand. She's a senator. She's criticized for being ineffective, out of touch. She's the most inert Democratic senator in history. She parrots MAGA talking points. She did this recently on a radio show that she was on. It was like she was on drugs or something. It was like she was high. She was particularly attacking. I know you're just listening to me say this, but believe me, I heard it. This happened. She particularly was attacking Democratic mayoral candidate in New York with false claims. In my opinion, she long ago lost credibility for what she did in the Al Franken affair, and I think she's disconnected from the real issues of the people she represents, but she thinks she can do it. She thinks it's okay, and that's the thing with all of them. They think they can do it, and they think that it's okay. So anyway, this has got to be kind of a screen here. So Basically, let's take a moment and let's stop this segment. This is actually a double segment I've done. And let's just say this is Politics by Jake on this July 4th, 249 years of independence of the United States. And we'll be back shortly after this message. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. If you think owning things in your own name keeps you in control, think again. In today's world, lawsuits, taxes, and predators are everywhere. That's why the smart money hides in plain sight. We help you to build legal firewalls, LLCs, land trusts, private contracts that protect your assets while keeping you invisible. Call Twain Consulting today at 310-997-2204. Find us on Facebook at Twain Consulting. That's facebook.com/Twain Consulting. Protect what you've built before someone else takes it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Hi, this is Jake with Politics by Jake to tell you you're not crazy. The system is rigged. Help us say it louder, won't you? Join us at patreon.com/Politics by Jake. All right, this is Politics by Jake, and we're back. And I want to talk to you about what we're dealing with, and it's just a really important part of this show. Trump wants an apotheosis of himself, and that means raising himself to the level of a god. You know, some people would say this is fine, let him have it. It costs us nothing as long as you're getting continued adherence to the alliance, that is NATO. And this goes on all the time, really, and it's absolutely essential. So we want sanctions on Russia now. And what I'm saying is I'm going to be getting into the historical aspects of this, which is why there are some people that you just can't deal with, and why some of my colleagues say that these people are not going to let go of power in just the ordinary way. They're not going to go quietly into that good night. You're going to have to literally kick them in the balls in order to let them get away from power. Putin has said that he wants economic forum this past week. He simply puts out this statement, says it in front of a packed house, but it's all broadcast. He says this: wherever Russian soldiers go, that's our land. Wherever Russian soldiers go, that's our territory. We have this old rule that says where a Russian soldier sets foot, that is ours. That is our territory. And this, I mean, if Trump could read or think, he would say this means that he wants not only all of Ukraine, but he wants all of the Baltic states. And he does. He wants all of Central Asia. He wants the stands back. You know, the 5 Central Asian republics he wants. You know, Kazakhstan. And he wants everything else. Anything that's ever been part of Russia, he wants it. Right? The 5 Central Asian republics, he wants. And anything that's ever been a part of Russia, he wants back. And when I heard this, I was reminded of the World War II documentaries that I used to watch as a kid back in the 1950s. And there's one of them, the way I remember it, was at a phase when things were not going so well for Germany. And this was, 1943. May mean after Stalingrad, right? Stalingrad is kind of September, January of 1942, 43. And this is a quote from Hitler that I have in my mind. And Hitler says, now get this. Hitler says, where a German soldier now stands, no other shall put his foot. And that would have been maybe Victory at Sea, which was popular in those days, or maybe Crusading Europe. By Eisenhower, and this other first generation of World War II documentaries. So here's what we have. I am right, although maybe I don't have the exact wording, but there are several versions, so it's a little bit more interesting. The quote from Hitler I have here in Germany is the following. So the idea is that where a German soldier stands, no one will go. And note that I just said that Putin said exactly the same thing. No one's going to take his place where he stands. This is just on the eve of an attack. It's on the eve of the German attack in the West against France. It's between the 4th and the 10th of May, 1941. It was put in the theaters and so forth. So That's one. How about this one? In the midst of the Norwegian campaign, because he took over Norway, he says, it's December 10th of December 1940. I need not tell you that no one will take the soil on which a German soldier now stands. Okay? Similar thought from Hitler, mainly focused on Norway. And January 30th, 1941, he says, we are now standing on this continent. We are standing in a place from which we, and from where we stand, nobody will ever be able to remove us again. And if we dominate Europe, this is after the fall of France in 1940, this is the same line for Putin. And that's clear. He holds his talks in contempt of the needs that do this. And it's absolutely in the same direct tradition of Hitler, and Putin is loved and admired, and arguably you could say that Putin's got something on Trump, the way he acts and the way he fawns over him. I mean, some of these things are almost really and hence, by the way, before I go on, hence the reason why we should be very concerned. Now, the other question, because some of these are just word for word, almost word for word citations. Now, the other question with respect to Iran in the book is the general response, the easy, automatic, detailed response of politicians. So if anybody's acting aggressive in military, they say, we need a ceasefire, we should stop the fighting, we should go to the peace table. And this is the problem, and this is the point of what I'm talking about, really. And we're in the midst of it. In the 1940s, Europe and the world was saved from fascism by the United States. But now fascism has come to the United States. And the question is, who saves the United States? So if somebody's acting aggressive in military, we should go to negotiation. The problem is that with certain regimes are incorrigible. Trump, for example, is incorrigible. Certain regimes you cannot negotiate with. And the problem is that certain regimes, whatever they sign, whatever they approve, whatever they agree to, it's going to be a dead letter the next morning, if not sooner. And Adolf Hitler was such a person. Remember, Hitler says, first of all, I'll support, he's going to agree to maintain the Versailles system for a while. And there are ins and outs to this. And, we could discuss this and we could have an intelligent discussion about this. But this is what he says. Makes a friendship treaty with Poland. And so forth. That's the starting point. By 1933, 1934, then, however, he says, I want the Rhineland. I want the demilitarized Rhineland to be remilitarized by me. Yeah. I'm going to send my troops. He had very few, but he sent whatever he had. He flew across the Rhine River on the bridges. The French and the British, they do nothing. And there's a reason of that. I talk about some of my videos that you can have on youtube.com/politics by Jake that talk about those. And then Hitler says, okay, that was not enough. See, the Rhineland is not enough. Now I want Austria. I want the Anschluss. I want Austria to be a part of Unicom Austria. As he says, I want Austria to become part of the German Reich. And that's done. Then he's finished with that, and he says, now I want the Sudetenland, which Sudeten is southern land, of Czechoslovakia. This is the best part. And this is Politics by Jake. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Hi, this is Jake with Politics by Jake. Do you like what you hear right now? Support the real talk then. Go to patreon.com/politics by Jake right now. Every dollar helps fight the noise. And this is Politics by Jake, and we're back. This is by now, we're in summer of 1938. So he takes, long story short here, he takes the Sudetenland. During the course of this is where he says, "This is my last territorial demand in Europe." Except it wasn't. He then says, "I need all of Bohemia. I need Prague. I need the whole Czech Republic side of it. I want that." And so he creates a puppet state out of Slovakia. And that's the story out of Slovakia. And that's the story of President Hacha. Get this. Of Slovakia, the guy comes to negotiate with Hitler. Hitler talks to him about how he's going to bomb the hell out of Slovakia and so forth. And the guy has a heart attack. Hacha has a heart attack. So the Nazis, they bring in their doctors and they're able to keep him alive as he's signing away the sovereignty of the whole country. Czechoslovakia, gone. Okay? And then what? And then... I mean, this is serious. This has happened, and this is why the reason I'm telling you this is because Putin is the same way, Trump is the same way. So getting back to Hitler, what comes after this? The Munich Accord, in which basically the idea is that this is the last territorial demand in Europe. I swear to God, this is what happened, except that it's not. And then comes, of course, Poland. I want the Polish corridor, he says. I want the space left open to give, that had been left open to give the Poles access to the Baltic and the world ocean. And that's no good either. So at a certain point, just looking at all of this stuff, you have to say, as the British, to give, that had been left open to give the Poles access to the Baltic and the world ocean, that's no good either. So at a certain point, you have to say, as the French and the British finally did, you can't negotiate with this guy. He won't respect his commitments. He lies. He cheats. He deceives. It's useless to talk to him. You've got to use military means. And maybe you make him back down, but if not, you've got to assert a military defense. Now you look at Putin. What Putin is telling us here with this stuff about nobody sets foot where the Russian soldier, and it's just a lift from what Hitler said about the German soldier. This is Putin's version of it. Wherever the Russians, it's just baloney. It's nonsense. And they're relying on your ignorance, and that's why we have Politics by Jake, cheap plug, to tell you about these things. Relying on the ignorance of the people who really just want peace and they want to live their lives. They're not like these people who lust after power. And this is Putin's version of it. Wherever the Russian soldier goes, that's our land. That's our old rule. Well, that essentially means that you're going to be demanding excess, as we've said repeatedly. This is the prophecy of Moscow as the third Rome, coming from the apocalyptic month Philotheus, not so far from Moscow. It was back in the 16th or 15th century. And it's the idea that there's going to be a third Roman Empire. One Rome has fallen on the Tiber. The second Rome on the Bosporus has fallen. The third Rome is Moscow. Again, go to Politics by Jake. youtube.com/@politicsbyjake. I have a video about this, and I could talk about it more in the show, but we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it now, except just to mention it. But they know this. The Russians know this. You don't know this. That's why you listen to Politics by Jake, because I will tell you these things that nobody else will tell you. Cheap plug, Politics by Jake, 7 a.m. Mondays and Fridays. KCARadio.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay? The third Rome is Moscow. And the fourth Philotheus says there will not be. And that's essentially worldwide. So here's the upshot of this. If somebody says, I'm the agent of a worldwide third Roman Empire, you can't negotiate with a person like that. And I'm afraid the Iranians are the same. They're in the tradition of Byzantium, the cynical, the holistic idea that there is no legality, there is no international law. They talk about it, but they don't really mean it. And therefore, it is certainly plausible that the cynical, the holistic idea that there is no legality, no international law, to stave off something worse in the future, you might have to bomb their nuclear program. And I don't believe for a minute that we destroyed it, but some people say, are you giving a big issue against Trump? And I don't think those are big issues against Trump. I think it's probably the average Joe out there in the boondocks feels some mixture and relief and even pride that the United States has these abilities, and therefore it's better to attack on some other area, which would be, for example, you're trying to destroy Medicare. You're trying to destroy Medicaid. You're destroying food stamps. And this current bill, just to end up, is so monstrous. Obviously, we want to block this. We tried to block it. It's a monstrosity. It's got killer cuts all over the place. 16 million people will be thrown off their health insurance. 16 million people will lose their health care to that extent. It's the biggest loss rolled back of health care and health insurance in the history of the United States. And this is from Trump, who promised that he would not do this to working people. He was aware of the needs of the working people and the working man, and he wouldn't do it. But of course, this is exactly what he did. So you can forget about what he says in his promises. 4.5 million people will lose their food stamps. SNAP, overwhelmingly, I don't know what it is, 80%, 85% of the top 1%, the waste, the fraud, the abuse. This is the oldest Republican sham, the oldest Republican hokum in the book. Goes back to the 1950s, that I can tell you. If you know, we said, well, it looks like we didn't balance the budget, but we'll get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. That would be killer cuts in the real world. You have Mitch McConnell of a taker state, Kentucky. Mitch is talking about, what about the fact that you people were cutting Medicaid? And Mitch says, well, it comes to Medicaid, the people will get over it. What does that mean? What kind of thing is that? What kind of cynicism is that? These cuts are going to be to the bottom 1/3 of the United States population, wage earners particularly, 1/3. So 1/3 means everybody under $55,000 a year puts you in 1/3. You're going to get hit hard. They will lose the biggest. You call that populism? You call that friend of the working man? Certainly not. And all right, I basically think we're out of time. We celebrate the birth of the United States and the birth of freedom, 249 years. We will be back on Monday with another show, and we hope you have a pleasant holiday. Celebrate and remember the new birth of freedom, because it's under attack and your very lives depend upon it. And this is Politics by Jake. And now here's a word from one of our sponsors, Twain Consulting. Hi, this is Jake with Twain Consulting. Let's be blunt, shall we? America is litigious. It's unstable, and it's financially weaponized. If your name is on everything you own, you're a sitting duck. At Twain Consulting, we help you vanish legally, ethically, and permanently. From land trusts to layered LLCs, we teach you how to restructure your assets so the predators can't see them and can't touch them. This isn't a loophole. It's a strategy that the wealthy have used for decades. Isn't it time you got the same protection? Call Twain Consulting at 805-380-5699 or visit us online. Protect what's yours before someone else claims it. And now let's get back to Jake and Politics by Jake. Are you tired of the noise and the spin? Do you want the real story behind the headlines? I'm Jake, and this is Politics by Jake, where I tell you what they won't. And now we're going even deeper. and I need your help to keep doing it. Join me on Patreon and support independent political analysis that doesn't pull punches. You'll get insider breakdowns, you'll get bonus clips, and first access to new content. So go to patreon.com/politics by Jake. That's patreon.com/politics by Jake. No filters, no fluff, just the truth. Let's do this together.